All right, it's time for a little bit of a confession. I'm a little bit saddened to see the pandemic coming to an end. There were some things that I liked about the pandemic. I really liked how I avoided a lot of bullying and harassment from the rest of society. Not only amongst my coworkers, but also amongst people I would see just out in public. Now, I first noticed this when I was in college. I had a former classmate who I went to high school with. He, this was back in the day when he was gambling online, and he would often travel to various venues to gamble. And I got really envious at all his travels, and I asked him to, could you please keep it to yourself? I wasn't going to tell him not to do it. I mean, I know better than to do that, but I told him, could you please keep it to yourself? I'm really trying to focus with school. And he refused to keep it to himself. And at the time, I didn't have very many connections. If it were today, I would just stop talking to him altogether. But at the time, I didn't have very many connections. You got to understand, when I was 18 years old, I didn't drive a car yet. I had a big fear of flying, which was part of the reason I didn't want to hear about his travels, because I could never go those places. The other thing you have to remember was that back then I didn't realize that one could go out without a partner. And so I would see people going to movies or traveling on vacation, and I was in between partners, and I didn't realize I could do any of that. You got to remember the situation I was in. And I think he found some kind of pleasure out of going, haha, I'm doing all these things and you don't know how to do them, and or you don't have time to do them, or whatever the situation is. And that was my first it was my first time dealing with a situation outside of my family's home, and it made me realize that just how close our friends sometimes can be, and how we might not have as many friends as we think we do. I've come to realize true friendship is very rare here in anywhere in the world. I've come to realize that. Now, it's not only just friends who are deliberately trying to bully you, but also people who unknowingly pass judgment for things that really are none of their business. So I have high-functioning autism. I talked about it. I don't think I ever show it in some of my videos. And I control it with my diet. You would not want to be around me if I were eating the standard American diet. I would probably be institutionalized. I don't want to even tread in that area, because when I was a teenager and eating a standard American diet, if I had continued down that road, I don't know where I would be today. Probably wouldn't be alive today. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Now, I control it very well with my diet. The problem is that people seem to be bothered by it. I'll go to an event and I'll refuse food. At the very least, I have to reveal the condition I have in order to refuse food without it being taken too far. Right? That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that the refusal of food becomes the center of attention for a large party that might have 50, 100 people. And unfortunately, some of these events I have to go to, they're very important for my career. Fortunately, COVID-19 has given me a way out of it. And so when I see that the pandemic might be slowing down, I feel a little bit of a time crunch, and I got to sort this out. Fortunately, good health has been on everybody's mind. I think that's one thing I do have on my side when we go back to work. I hope it stays that way, though, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago when we were dealing with other health scares, right? AIDS wasn't that long ago, and then there was SARS-1. What else has gone on? Obviously, people have... we had the financial crisis, and obviously, if that taught us anything, well, we had, healthcare costs were out of control, right? If that taught us anything, that our good health is important, right? Unfortunately, the lesson was very short-lived, so I have mixed feelings about how long the lessons of good health are going to stay with us after the pandemic. But people get bothered by little quirks that should be none of their business. So I work at a tutoring center. This was a different tutoring center than the current one that I'm working at. And actually, this is part of the reason I left that tutoring center, what I'm going to talk about right now. I had a client one day, it was an afternoon, I think it was 2 to 4 p.m. if I remember correctly. Now the night before seeing that client, I was out in Ellensburg to view some kind of stargazing event. I can't remember what it was. Maybe a lunar eclipse or a conjunction between some of the planets. Now I get back in town at around 1:30, and I drive straight to the tutoring center because I have things I needed to read up anyway. There's a waiting room and all that. Now there's a counter that's you can stand and put your computer on there. I wanted to make sure to stand for a little bit because I had been driving for 3 hours and I needed to tutor this kid for 2 hours. I wanted to get some exercise. So I'm standing there, my manager comes by and he says, "Oh, you can grab a seat over there. There's nobody using that seat." And I didn't want to respond to him. I continued to I was composing an email or something like that. I can't remember what I was doing. And he persisted, and he even looked at the chair. And now I feel very pressured, and I take a seat. But I'm thinking to myself, why does my standing bother you? I'm not in the way of anybody. It wasn't like I was in the way or that I looked like I was in trouble or anything, in terms of overexertion or anything, right? And I mean, if I'm clearly overexerting myself and you want to be helpful, sure, right? Things like that bother me. Why does my activity bother you, right? Why does my not wanting to eat something bother you? Why does my wanting to focus on my studies and not be distracted by all your gambling trips bother you, right? This is one thing I've really loved about the pandemic, and I hope we continue to take lessons from. Hopefully the people who bullied me about this stuff, they'll realize that during the pandemic they weren't bullied by something, and they'll learn from it. But like I said, there are a lot of lessons throughout history that we didn't keep very long, so I have mixed feelings about that.